So I am Charles Brandquist from Oxford University Press. I feel like Helene stole most of my notes, frankly. She touched on many of the subjects that I would like to talk about as well. I am a newbie here for sure. As Rebecca has mentioned, I've been here in publishing for about 1 year. Prior to this, I was in investment banking. Prior to that, I was in diversity, but always touching recruitment. Recruitment in the US, recruitment in India, recruitment in Switzerland, but always touching recruiting with the eye on diversity initiatives specifically. Oxford University Press, although 500 years old, 6,000 people globally, still has to bring its game up a bit further. I think when I look back in publishing a year ago when I was thinking of considering this role, I saw lots of articles in Google specifically talking about the challenges that publishing faces. And I'm sorry to say we're still facing those same challenges. So from 40 years ago, those articles are remarkably identical to the articles we're reading in 2016 and 2017. The issues, the challenges may exist by socioeconomic reasons, by unconscious bias, by hiring teams, recruiting people that look and sound and act like they do or from the universities that they've come from. So all of that is certainly an issue, even for Oxford. But when I joined the firm, I specifically asked what their plan is for increasing diversity at Oxford. And, they talked about accountability. They talked about budget, to your point earlier. They talked about going out to historically black colleges and universities. They talked about the underrepresented classes that exist in all of publishing. I'm not sure there's a silver bullet for any of it. I think it's all part of the process of stepping forward, building a team, building a function, building a process that will attack some of these issues, which I'm very happy to say I'm part of that process for Oxford. So going back, when we look at statistics in publishing specifically, 70, 80, 90% Caucasian, 80% females. It's really, frankly, frightening that we're not doing more to offer suggestions, offer initiatives that can change some of the look and feel of what university presses in particular look like. So I think to Rebecca's point earlier, this is a great start, having these open discussions, having these discussions around what would do next, what Helene was saying that she would do next with Beacon. These are fabulous things, I think, going forward. As a small point to all of this, about 6 weeks ago, I went on campus with our president, Nico Fund, to a school in North Carolina, and we spent about 2.5 hours talking to faculty, talking to students, talking to librarians, all of the people we wanted to touch for sure. At the end of this wonderful presentation, and I was sitting back watching because Nico was delivering it, I was able to see the students sitting at the edge of their seats, really intently listening to what he was saying about careers in publishing, the PowerPoint behind him. It was fantastic. When I speak, people tend to nod off, people tend to do their homework or whatever, but they were at the edge of their seats. At the end of this 2.5-hour presentation, the head of career services came up to me, thanked us for our time, which is fantastic. She mentioned to me that we were the only publishing house to set foot on her campus in probably 10 years. I have nothing to say about that. It's something we ought to be doing collectively as an industry. I think diversity is not something we can solve today. I think it's a 5-10-year program for sure. I think much of it starts at the university level, for sure. I think, we're talking at Oxford about going off to some of these urban high schools and talk to some of those students as well about bringing them on as apprentice or as an intern, and then funding some of their college money and tuition. So I think that's one way of engaging the students that we need to talk to about building diverse programs within the company. Let's see, so what else? Mentorship, menteeship programs, absolutely critical. part of my arrogance back a year ago, I said to Nico and I said to head of HR, I can solve all of your diversity issues within a year. Then what, right? Because we'll have plenty of underrepresented classes in the organization, but then what do you do with all these young, intelligent, ambitious young minds? Do we have a development program? Do we have a mentorship program? Do we have ways of engaging these students after their first year is up? Because I'll have to go back on campus and do it all again the following year if we can't retain them. So retention becomes a very critical part of any diversity programs. Let's see, I've got some more notes here. The important part, really the important part is don't hesitate. Get out there, start it, engage it, speak to some of these programs, get a consultant on board that can help your staff, do some light training around diversity and inclusion. It increases retention, it reduces lawsuits, it reduces a lot of things that will help the organization and increase your return on investment. I was telling Gita before that when looking at return on investment of diversity programs, consumer goods, electronics, IT are very happy to brag about them. Publishing, not so much. Mostly because no one's tracking it. I can say, for one, I am tracking it at Oxford. I want to see what the results are of this money, this budget, that they're giving me to get out there and become more ingrained in the diversity organizations that exist in this country. So that's been very interesting as well. So it can range from 0% return on investment to 8 or 9 or 10% ROI as well. So actions certainly speak louder than words. So we could all pat ourselves on the back and say we've got a program in place. We can say that we have a diversity team that is training new staff, that is mentoring new staff, but if we're not physically doing it, if we're not accountable to it, and if we stop driving it, it will absolutely fail. And worse than fail, it'll send us back 50 years at least. So I think the initiatives have to be accountable to someone quite senior in your organization. And I, for one, have Nico, who is the president of the organization, so I've got lots of support from his board and lots of support from his team. We have several employee research groups that are involved in here, so whether it's LGBTQ or African Americans or Asians, you know, these are groups that get together monthly and have discussions openly about what some of the challenges are and where I should be knocking on doors. And I'm happy to do that because I don't have all the answers yet. We have subcommittees here as well, diversity subcommittees that meet monthly as well in Nico's office. I do it by phone because Nico's in New York and I'm in Cary, North Carolina. Next week I will be there in person, so I'll be able to engage them more together when we're in person together. What else can we talk about? You know, I think I'm maybe not coming across correctly, but I think I'm very passionate. I know I'm very passionate about this particular subject. I was a young, poor kid from Brooklyn, New York. All of my friends were either Hispanic or African American, so I feel personally what they are feeling as they were growing up as well. In my first job in investment banking, I was one of 30 Caucasian males. It didn't dawn on me that I was much smarter than all of my black and Hispanic friends, because clearly that was not the case. But investment banking has the same issues that we have in publishing, for sure. They have a lot more money to spend to build these programs, for sure. Budget's important, commitment's important, accountability is important as well. Let's see. So we talked about training, we talked about, okay, so while your teams are interviewing, I'd like to say this, while your teams are interviewing, don't let your white managers complete the interviewing process. Have a diverse panel of interviews. There you'll get much more interesting feedback and you'll get much more fair feedback for the applicants as well. So, you know, take a look at your interview process, look at the interview panels, ensure they're giving you proper feedback, and track that feedback. It's something I'm doing very closely. If I find managers that are making the same decisions, no matter how many African Americans or Hispanics or Asians or people with disabilities, no matter how many of those they interview, and they still select that blonde, blue-eyed woman, I've got something to show Nico, and he won't be happy, I assure you. If they're the most competent, if they're the best fit, argumentative. But if they make the same decision and that team of 15 has 14 women and one senior manager is a male Caucasian, I do have an issue with that. And we have to be a bit stronger. I think, to your point earlier, you have to help the managers understand how important this initiative is for this industry, for your companies in particular, and the social responsibility that we have to take into account as well. So it's not just about ROI, but there's a social aspect to this as well. We kind of all can assume what the benefits are to what we're talking about today, whether it's ethnically varied businesses or whether it's gender varied businesses. We all can see that they're more creative, better problem solvers, affecting the sales teams, affecting product development, all the more cause to do this correctly and do this often. Let's see. So lunch and learns, good point as well. We do the same thing. We have diverse authors coming in to talk to our staff. We do that quite often as well. Don't be afraid to talk to your HR teams. I'm not sure if anyone in here is from HR, but get them involved. They can certainly help drive home this initiative for sure. So do speak to HR as well. And create a zero tolerance environment. Don't be afraid of that either. That's an important part of this as well, because if you're forcing training on your staff, they're going to respond negatively. If you make it a voluntary training program and they take accountability to train themselves and become more diverse, conscious, you'll find that your numbers of diverse hiring will go up considerably, 10, 15% inside of a year or two. Again, no silver bullet. We all are sitting here, we're all learning from each other. This is a 5-10-year process for sure. But there is no time like the present, and this has been going on in publishing for, to your point, centuries. So we do have to make some changes. That's it for me. Thank you.